Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Good. 1 second. Okay, you hear me?
Yes.
Good, we can start. All right, we're up to page 133. Page 133. Okay, you got the same edition though. No. So we're in Chelik Dalet, Perek Revi, Ois Beis. Ois Beis. Vihine. Got it? Okay, so now again, in Krishma, we're talking about being Mekabel. It's like a declaration. You got it? Page 133.
Yeah.
133. Ois Beis. Divrei Masel Vehine.
Vehine mimash yes ois.
Yes. So it's like we're declaring that everything that exists is Shaykh HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and also there's another aspect. We're accepting on us all of the different ways in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu rules upon us. And in the words of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad has to be everything. So now he says like this, V'hinei, mimash yesh oid lahavchin. There's another form of hanhoga, let's call it, another form of interaction, a way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacts with us. The yachas between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and us. Ki habeirei yizbarach shemoi hinei hu melech al kol briyosov. This is the malchus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, melech ha'olam. This is Rosh Hashanah. When Rosh Hashanah will mamlich HaKadosh Baruch Hu upon us. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu is also considered, he's not only a creator, he's not only all-encompassing, but he's also the Melech. Says the Ramchal, Upirish inyan zehu, ki omnon, amitas, and they have to understand this, every time you say, Elokeinu, Melech, Yudke Vovke, Adni, all these shemos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu refer to a different form of interaction between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One of the most beautiful Sforim is a sefer called Shari Oiro. In fact, Reb Chaim Volozhiner writes that they asked the Vilna Goin, how are you, for somebody who doesn't know Kabbalah, how are you yotze the chiyuv of learning Kabbalah for somebody who doesn't know it? He says, it's enough to do Toima Dvoira and Shari Oiro. Shari Oiro was written by somebody in the same time as the Rashba. Same time as the Rashba. Yosef Giliktura or something, I can't remember, I don't know how to pronounce it. And his sefer is a sefer explaining all the different shemos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzvokos, Kale, Chai, hundreds and hundreds of shemos. In the Agdoma, in his introduction to the sefer, he writes, he says, somebody who doesn't know what the shemos are referring to is like somebody who's knocking at the door and doesn't have the key. He said, because when you daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and you want to ask for some sort of specific refuah, parnosa, hatzola, every single thing comes through a different channel. So you literally have to, it's like, you know what it is? It's like asking for a specific channel to be opened. You're asking for a specific door to be opened. Says the Shari'ira, he says, he who doesn't know what those shemos mean is like somebody who's there at
Much better
knocking at the
you
door,
see him.
and he doesn't
No,
have
I
the
don't
key
need that.
to
Yeah.
get in. He doesn't have the key to get in. So we have to understand every single shem refers to a different form of interaction between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A different form. The example, Kale, Aleph Lamed. Kale, Aleph Lamed, what is that? That's Chesed. So when you're asking for Chesed, you have to ask through the words of Kale. HaKale, that's why you say on Avram Avinu, HaKale HaGodel. Godel refers to Chesed always. Giboir refers to Dinim, refers to the left side, not the right side. Noiro refers to the awe-inspiring HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov, Godel, Giboir, V'Noiro. Each one of the shemos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu refers to a different hanhoga in which he interacts with our world. And therefore, every shem you have to know with which name to call HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the way the Sha'arei calls it. You have to call HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the right way. Now, the Poshet of shemos, that means we're not talking about Kael or God or Gibor, are Adni, Melech, Yudke Vovke, and Elokim. Those are the four basic shemas that we have. Now, Yudke Vovke we know, and we know it from the Rishonim at the beginning of Nedorim. The Yudke Vovke is called the Shem Etzem of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore it's Shem She'enom Nimchokim. You're not allowed to be mochik the Shem of Yudke Vovke. The Yudke Vovke is referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so here you have we have a slight argument, which I never quite understood it. The Nefesh HaChaim says Yudke Vovke is referring to not any interaction between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's Kilo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Klape himself. That means the God who was there and who's there before anything was created. That means the God who's there before he created the ability for us to be created. That's Yudke Vovke. So Yudke Vovke is not referring to any interaction between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's referring to Atzmuso Yizbarach, Yudke Vovke. And therefore, so the Leshem asks in one place, he says, if so, he doesn't understand why you can have a name. He says, because any name, the reason why I'm called Danny and you're called Harry or Chaim is because I call you, you call me. That means if a name is needed when there's an interaction between you. If there's no interaction between you, there's no name. A name categorizes something. A name is always a hagdara of something. So says the Leshem, he doesn't understand how Yud came, why we should have a shame for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if we're talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who doesn't interact to us at all. Therefore, he says that's not what Yud Kei Vovke is. In any case, Yud Kei Vovke in Pashtus is not talking about any form of interaction. It's not referring to any interaction between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But Elokim, Melech, and Adni are. So now the Ramchal is going to explain what's Adni and what's Elokim and what is Melech. So he says like this, Upirish Inyan Zehu, Ki omnon amitas mitziyuso yizborach hu, dovo bilti nitle bezulosoi klau. Ubilti mityaches lizulosoi. When you're talking about the atzmuso yizborach, when you're talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm just going to say it now, yeah? When you're talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're not, when you're talking about him, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not in the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu be'etzem has no need to interact to anything. you're referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're not referring to an interaction in which he acts to us. Now, here's a very interesting thing. It says the Ramchal, Amitas Metzius Baruch Hu davar bilti nitle bezulosei klal. Ubilti mityachas l'zulosei. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not in any way, doesn't need anyone, and has no need for interaction. We have a need to interact with him. He has no need to interact with him. Ki hinei hu hamotzui muchrach v'sholem mitzad atzmoi. He doesn't need us for him to be sholem. There was no need chas v'sholem. There's no one ever entertained a havamina that Kodesh Baruch Hu created us because he needed us for him to be complete. That's not true. Olam chesed yibone. He built the world and created mankind as a chesed. That means, by definition, he was not in need of anything. But he created it to do a chesed with us, which is fascinating because there was no one there to do chesed too. But he created us as a chesed. And therefore, God has no need to interact. Says the Ramchal, Ve'en l'shum yichus im ache klal, lo lemalo mimenu, v'lo lemata mimenu. He has no, when we're talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we cannot refer to him in reference to an interaction with something else. Pirush, she'ein lo sibo she'yito lebo klal, lo k'mesayvev im sibosei, v'lo k'mitztaref im mitztarefei. We cannot, when we're talking about atzmusoi, we can't talk about him in reference to somebody else or in reference to an interaction with somebody else. Because when we're talking about him, he has no need for anything. He is sholem with nobody. That's achduso yizborach. That's what it means, ein oid milvadoi. He has no need for anybody else. V'hinei mibchino zois, says the Ramchal, nikoreu b'shem Elokim, which is fascinating. Elokim, as far as I know, is called Teva. Elokim is the way in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu, look in the Torah. The Torah says, what's the Shem Elokim? What's the Shem of Elokim? What's the Kavanah when you say Elokim? Baal kol hakoyches kulon. He is the one in control of all of the koyches of the world. He's like the source. He's like the man behind the curtain. He is the one who's in control of everything. So the Shem Elokim is talking about his control on us. And the Shem Elokim is he's in control. And nevertheless, the Ramchal writes here, it's one of the only places I've ever found it, that Ramchal says the Shem Elokim refers to him, not to any interaction between us, but to him. To him. We'll talk about it maybe later, what it is. But that's not what's important for us. והנה בבחינה זו יש נקרא בשם אלוקים ברוך הוא, דהיינו המוצוי המוכרח מצד עצמו. Ramchal says, what's the Shem Elokim? It's fascinating. Shem Elokim is the only true entity that exists. Motzui muchrach mitzad atzmoi. Every other entity which exists only because of he who created him, and constantly exists only because there is somebody who is allowing it existence. But amitas mitziusai, again, emes doesn't mean, in the pure language of emes, it doesn't mean truth more than sheker. Emes means kiatok elikim emes. What does emes mean? You are the ultimate truth. Meaning, you are the only true entity that exists in the world. Anything else, even if it looks like it exists, but its existence is only dependent upon something else. Ki ato Elokim emes, udvocha emes l'kaim lot. Emes meaning ultimate truth. Ultimate truth meaning the only thing which truly exists. Fascinating. What's sheker? Sheker is the opposite. L'sheker en raglaim. Why is l'sheker en raglaim? Sheker is always dependent upon the liar. Any untruth only exists because of somebody who lied. If you take away he who lied, you have no sheker. So sheker is the absolute antithesis. Is that the right English? It's the complete opposite of emes. Emes means it exists by itself. And therefore, God is the ultimate emes because his existence is not dependent upon anything. Sheker only exists because of he who lied. It's l'sheker en raglaim. What does it mean, l'sheker en raglaim? It doesn't go on its own. It can't walk off. It's always on the string by that he who lied. Any case, so says the Ramchal, Elokim, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokim, Hashem Elokeinu. Elokeinu refers to in his atzmusai, without his dependence on anybody else. Va'omnom, God, for whatever reason, wanted to create nivroim. Yes, he wanted to create nivroim. V'kulam tluyim boy b'mitziusam u'b'chol b'chinoisam. And they are totally dependent upon him for their existence. That means their existence of all those nivroim. We're not talking about anything beyond their existence. Their existence is totally dependent upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, in that bchina, again, the bchina that we are totally on him, our existence is dependent upon him. So we have Elokeinu, which is referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, mitzad atzmut, not in any connection to us. Then we have the Shem of Adnus, which refers to what? The fact that our existence is totally dependent upon him. Rotzo uvro nivroim v'kulam tluim boy b'mitziusam v'chol b'chinoisam. U'k'mo shezochanu nikra'eu b'bchino zoi adoin hakoil. Where do we see the lotion of adoin? You find it by an eved. An eved you find has an odoin. Now we know that an eved only, his whole being is only to serve his master. If we're looking for a lotion in Loshen Kodesh, which would be expressing total dependence upon somebody else, that would be the expression of Odoin. Odoin meaning that we are totally dependent upon him. So we call HaKadosh Baruch Hu Adoin HaKoil because everything is dependent upon him. And therefore an Eved is called an Eved to his Odoin. What does the Russian of Rashi says? Rashi says, Mitzvahs lav lehonis nidnu, says Rashi. Why is mitzvahs lav lehonis nidnu? Because when an Eved works for his master, there is nothing else besides the work. There's no personal person. There's no personal person there. The Eved loses his individuality. He loses his sense of self. He becomes completely an Eved Ladoinov. Says Rashi in Sukkah, mitzvahs lav lehonos nitnu, says Rashi. Why? Because it's like avodas Eved l'Rabbi, where you lose total sense of self. You're totally bottle umavutal to the Odoin. So that's the lotion of Adoin HaKoil. Adni is the Lashon which means everything is dependent upon him. Ve'ulam, says the Ramchal. Oid rotzo betuvoi v'chaznoi. Lahashpil kavayochel bam v'sosoi. Es rum kvoidoi. Here HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the ultimate humbleness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is that he created an interaction, a connection, a kesher between himself and humanity in the way that Kavayochel, he will be dependent upon them. That means even though we know he doesn't need us at all, and he is, in essence, Memala Kol Alma, Einoid Mevadoi. And even though he's the Adoin HaKoil, and we are totally bottled to him, and only our whole existence is dependent upon him. But nevertheless, Mirov Anvelosus, he's the Anivus HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He was mashpil, his covered, and rum kvoidoi, and he was mitchaches el nivrov. First of all, there's a personal connection. You understand? There's a first chiddush. Melech is a personal reaction, is a personal connection. When you're talking about Elohim, there's nothing personal about it. Elohim means he's the God who has no need for anybody else. It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu Batzmusai. Adoin HaKoil means I am the source of your existence. Constantly the source of your existence. But there's no personal connection. Melech and Am is a connection which only exists amongst mankind. Not only mankind. You have the Chayos. You have the Aryeh, who's the Melech of the Chayos. But it's always a personal connection between the. You can't have an Odom being a Melech on Chayos. Chayos have a Chayo. Correct? And Odom has an Odom. So Melech and Am is a personal connection. It's an interaction which is on a personal level. HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed and created a connection between mankind and himself, which is on a personal level. That is the first chiddush in Melech. Melech brings HaKadosh Baruch Hu down to a personal level. Carries on the Ramchal. Even though we know the truth, God has no connection to us. It's ridiculous to say that HaKadosh Baruch Hu and us can have an interaction on a personal level. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted a yachas between Klal Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be a yachas of a melech elam. She'echoshev lohem l'roish ulemanig ulehiskabet kaval yochel bom kemelech shemiskabet ba'amoy. Here's the second chiddush, which is unbelievable. And this really changes the whole world. Changes the world. A melech, the Vilna Gaon says, what's the difference between a moishel and a melech? Says the Vilna Gaon, a moishel is a dictatorship. A dictatorship, Stalin was by rule of the gun. That means there was no real interaction between him and the people. He forced his control on the people. That's a moishel. That means in truth, there's no interaction. He's sitting there on top and you have to listen to him. But there's nothing coming. It's only from the moishel down. He is the ultimate dictator. He dictates his will on the people, but he has really nothing to do with the people. He forces them by force to listen to him. That's moishel. Says the Vilna Gaon, Melech is not that. Melech works the other way. Ein Melech b'lo Am. The Am choose the Melech. The Am give the power to the Melech. The Melech can only exist mikoyach the Am. Leiv HaMelech, Leiv HaAm. The whole power of the Melech is by the fact that he is the Leiv HaAm. His power comes from the Am. If I'm not mistaken, I once saw Rebbe Kushalevsky, Ptzi's father, in his Sefer, brings from Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says if 60%, if Roiv HaAm decide, a Melech who's been appointed, but if 60% of, if Roiv HaAm decide that he shouldn't be a Melech, it'll be mafkir his Malchus, because he doesn't have any koyach besides them. Now listen to this, unbelievable. Says the Ramchal, in the fact that Kodesh Baruch Hu created a yachas of Melech and Am, first of all, he created a personal connection. A personal connection. Only, Yitzchak Kutner says, only min b'minoi can become a Melech. You can only have a Melech of the Behemos Chayos has to be an Aroyos, is an Aryeh. The Melech of Bnei Odom is an Odom. Only min b'minoi. That means the Melech literally rises from the people. It's literally, you know what it is? It's unbelievable. The Melech rises from the people. So when you have Behemos and Chayos, the Melech has to rise from them. But when you have Bnei Odom, the Melech arises from them. So you have a personal, really a personal connection. I am you. I am literally, I think it's like the first amongst equals. The source of communism, in essence, the perfect communism, which is the first amongst equals, that's the Musig of Melech. Communism, really, the essence of communism, that we are all equal, starts from Yiddishkeit. Yiddishkeit says that there cannot be one more than the other. Every human being, every member of Klal Yisrael is the same thing. Everyone can be Moshe HaMelech, Moshe Rabbeinu. Ve'aminu b'Hashem b'Moshe Avdei. Says the Sfas Emes. What were they Yaminu b'Moshe Avdei? Says the Sfas Emes. They believed in their own ability. After they left Mitzrayim and they saw the koyach of Klal Yisrael, they believed in themselves. Everyone can become Moshe Rabbeinu. Ve'aminu b'Hashem u'b'Moshe Avdei. It says this Sfas Emes is called Emunas Yisrael. We are equal. And therefore, the Melech is first amongst equals. The Melech rises from the Am. And as Rebbe Kushalevsky says, he can be ousted by the Am, because that's what he is. He's the Koyach of the Am. Now, listen to what we're saying. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to be called a Melech. Malchusa da'aro ka-malchusa d'rakia. Correct? That's why the Ritvos says in Rosh Hashanah, we tokea shrifa on Rosh Hashanah to be Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because the way the world runs is a mirror image for us to see the way it is upstairs. So if there is shofros, when you know, Chas v'Shalom, I don't want to be madamit, but you know, anyone who saw the funeral of Prince Philip, yes? So, you know, I want to tell you, we see Malchus. There's nowhere else to see Malchus. You see it in England. The Queen, you see Malchus. And everything, whenever the Queen comes or anything happens, there's trumpets. Says the Ritva, K'machusa da'ara, K'machusa da'ara, Machusa d'rakia. Therefore, there's Tekeah Sheifa for Machusa d'rakia. So the Malchus on earth isn't just happened. HaKadosh Baruch Hu put it here to show us the connection between him and us. He called himself a Melech. You want to know what that connection is? Look at the Melech in Klal Yisrael. Look at Malchus Beis David. You see the connection of Melech there? That's us. So now listen to the unbelievable anivus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. First of all, he created a personal connection. Melech is a personal connection. He's the Echot Shabam, but he's one of us. And second of all, his power comes from the people. Kavayochel HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a world. And in this world, he created, it's like some sort of dream world, because in truth, God needs nobody. But in this balloon that we find ourselves, in this balloon that God's created, this make-believe balloon that God created, he created an existence in which he needs us. That's Melech. Melech means he needs us. And that's the aside of Tnu Oiz Lelokim. That is the aside of Tnu Oiz Lelokim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I've created a world in which my Malchus needs you. And that, all that is included in the word of Melech. So now the Goin says, the brother of the Goin brings, in davening we say, if you go Siddur. No, don't bring me Siddur, don't bring me Siddur. No, I have to find you. One second. There's a Siddur there. I know there's a Siddur there. 1 second. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable, the words of the Ramchal. Unbelievable. But now listen how the Goin said it. Oh, said the Goin. I can't remember on what it went. Just 1 second. I can't remember what it is. The words is, this is on the words of wish. I can't remember. But the Lashon of the Goin is, there is no toiva, there's no toiva greater than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's no toiva greater than HaKadosh Baruch Hu did to us than the fact that he called himself Melech. Because that gives us a place of work. That means all our mitzvahs are for what? What's the purpose? The purpose is because God created a creation in which he needs us. And therefore, by creating such an environment, he gave us literally the mokim of avodah. Without that, we wouldn't have any mokim of avodah. That means the greatest matana he ever gave us was to call himself Melech. To call himself Melech, it gave us room to work. Because if he's a Melech, he needs the Am. He needs us. And we are mamlich him. And through that, he's a Melech. And that's Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the greatest of days in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings himself down to us and says, I need you to be mamlich. So that's what the Ramchal says. Says the Ramchal, Oid rotzo betuvei v'chesed, lahashpil kaviyochel b'anvosoi, es rum kvoidoi, v'lios mityaches el nivrov. He made a personal connection between man and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Afar pisha be'emes ein lo im yachas yiboy klar. V'rotzo lios b'madrega melech alam. And beyond that, he wanted to be in the madrega of melech. Sheichoshev lehem l'roish u'lemanig u'lehiskabed kaviyochel bom. to receive covered from them. Like every melech needs the to be mechabed him, and that's what makes him into being a melech. So also we need our mechabed him. Kemelech shemiskabed ba'amoy. In the same way that a melech needs the to be mechabed him. Uke'init shenema berov hadras melech. Ubibchino zoi, when we're referring to this interaction between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and us, Nikra'eu Malkei Shel Olam. We will call him Malkei Shel Olam. V'hinei b'bchina zu hu nechshav lanu l'rosh. In this, when we're talking about the Malchus, he's not something way above us. He's our head. He runs the tribe. He is the head of our tribe. He's the Rosh of Klal Yisrael. That means that there is no more personal connection than Melech. ובבחינה זו נקרא מלכה של אלוהים, והנה בבחינה זו נחשב לראש, ומסכבד בנו, וגם אנחנו חייבים לעבוד עבודתו, ולשמוע אליו לכל אשר יצווה כמלך בעמו. So that's the bchina of Melech. That's the bchina of Melech. V'ulam, says the Ramchal, b'bchina zu gam ken chayovim onu lakiroi b'chol yoim. That means all these things are included in Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. The Malchus is Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusai Leilavod. But all of these things, that means when I am making my declaration, and when I declare that I am Shayach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I have to declare in all his different facets, in the facet of Elokeinu, in the facet of Odoin, in the facet of Melech, all these things I have to declare. V'ulam b'bchina zu gam kechayvonu lakir b'kol yoyim, u'lekayem malchusei aleinu, u'lishtabed elav v'ligzera yisav, ke'avodim el malkom, v'zeh nikra kabolas oil malchus shamayim. Now, when we talk about Kabbalas oil malchus shamayim, what am I doing? I mekabel on him. I mekabel his. It's like Hatzarat Emunim. How do you say it? A pledge of allegiance. It's a pledge of allegiance to all that he is, to Odoin, to Melech, to Yud Kevavke, to Elokeinu, all these different things. And all these things need to be thought of. That means that you have to understand something. When you're declaring allegiance and you leave something out, it's not just not good. It's what's called awful. Do you understand me? Therefore, you're reading davening and you got one word wrong or you don't know what the kavan is. No, Mela. But when you're declaring your allegiance to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you don't, it's like declaring allegiance to 47 states of America. There are no, it's small, correct? That means you can't declare, when you're declaring allegiance and you leave out part of it, you've done the most terrible thing. So in Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, we're not playing games here. You have to know very well what you're thinking about and what you're declaring your allegiance to. And if you leave any aspect out, it's not just that you've not done good, you've done very bad. How is all this included in the word Shema Yisrael? Ha'hoidah bezov hazeh, shu melech malchei hamlochim, melech b'chol briyosav, elyonim v'tachtonim, v'kibel oil malchusay, v'ishtabed olav k'moshe zachan. It's like a précis of 50 different things you have to think about. All these things is the declaration of allegiance of Shema Yisrael. And he's still got another 8, 9, 10 pages to go. And all these things are in the Kavon of Shema Yisrael. And if you leave it out, you're not done well. But Mitzvah Hashem, when we finish this, as somebody said to me today, after learning a bit of what Shema Yisrael is, it should take about half an hour to say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. A gute Nacht to everyone. Seid mir a gute Nacht. Go.